So the next thing you want to do is to perhaps offer your description to your peer and let them look at both what you created as your sample project and the criteria to see if they see anything different. Okay? So let's just make an exchange of that.
Okay. There you go. Thank you.
I think we had, based on what I'm looking at, we had a lot of the same kind of criteria on there. Mm-hmm. The one thing I added was the first one that looks like a CD cover for students to just to know, for me, that I would expect it to be folded perhaps in a CD case or not, but that's what I was looking for as well.
I think I got to that kind of towards the end, but I think you
yeah.
were more specific with your criteria, which is good, because I think then that gives more guidance for whoever's making it. So I would definitely have to become more specific with my criteria. Other than that,
I think it was pretty much the same. We just used different words to describe the same thing.
So a couple of things that come to my mind that I didn't notice in either of your examples was the mention of the artist. You have titles but no artists. So how important is that the students actually know the names of the artists? To that, you could add, to bring in more cultural information, the country that those artists are from. And we know in studying many languages that the language is spoken in many different countries, even in diasporas. So that might be something that could make this more interesting to research from the student's point of view. So it's not something you have to include, but it's something to think about. If we think now about language, when you listed your criteria, what attention did you give to language per se? Let's say accuracy versus fluency. Let's remember all of the different types of input that there are. Can you look at your criteria and feel that, yes, that gives enough guidance, or would you add anything there?
I think I definitely would have to add more specifics about the language being used. You included that the conjugations have to be correct, and depending on what you're working on, I think that that would be really important, even if it's just at a vocabulary level in spelling, or correct articles, that sort of thing.
So I think too, in terms of language, just colloquial type expressions, making sure it fits with perhaps an audience that you were looking for. So using your language ladders and looking at the different functions, is the language you're using appropriate and suitable for who you're trying to target this for? So that could also be included for students to be thinking about and make them aware of that.
Good. So you want to be mindful of that. You might even be as specific as to say you must use these a couple of adjectives or verbs or adverbs. And that will encourage for students to use language that otherwise they might not make the trouble to actually learn. Okay, good. So now you've gone through the first couple of stages of developing an assignment. I'm going to give you 2 more tasks. The first one now is to create this as an exciting assignment using RAFTERS. And you will remember that RAFTERS means that you're going to assign a role, you're going to identify who the audience is, the form is a CD cover, give them a topic, whether you want it to be birthday music, romantic music, just friendship music, and you could choose that or you could keep that open. Something that will be engaging, and that's often the role that they're playing. So you can tell them that they're, the producers of a new radio show in their school, and they want, they're looking for new music to play during the noon hours. The reason or purpose for doing this, again, interconnected, and make sure that that verb, that strong verb is there, or strong verbs. So you may have to stress that they are researching, as well as drawing, as well as whatever other things you see. Okay, so take a minute to try to create your RAFTERS for this assignment.
one idea I had was, since we were both looking at French things, perhaps if you were telling your students that there was a class trip and they were going to be going to France, and you were selected to choose music that you wanted your classmates to listen to while they were on their trip, maybe something like that. And so choosing suitable music for a trip through France.
For the trip through France, okay. So that would be their role, the person who chooses the music, right?
Yeah.
Almost like a producer of this small CD.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
The next thing that we'll have to look at is the
Audience.
audience.
That would be their peers.
Yeah. And so that would be important to know that the level of language that they're using will be of people the same age as them, which could also make it engaging.
Yeah. And the type of music they choose also needs to be something that they would want to listen to, and also their peers.
And again, that might help with the motivation and the engagement. Next thing.
Next, well, we have the form, which is of course the CD cover. And then the topic was kind of just like trip music, traveling
French music, traveling, and for a younger age.
Yeah.
It could be a mixture of things, friendship, love, depending on where you are.
Sure.
So it's always a good idea to actually write RAFTERS and then to jot a few words beside them, beside each of the letters that represent rafters. And then to combine all of those features into a short, precise, and concise description. And a good way to start is to say, you are, because then it sets them right into that tone. So take a minute to try to do that.
Okay. Okay.
So engaging, I mean, for them it's something
they're trying
to peer group, so.
Yeah. And it's also the idea of choosing. That's hard. Okay, the next one.
Yeah.
So
I mean, their reason for doing it is, it is because they're going on the trip. You could maybe also, to make it more engaging, you could present it to them as kind of like a challenge. Like, your class has been chosen to provide several different examples of types of music, and the class will vote on which selection they would like to all listen to on the trip. So that could maybe make it engaging for them. That
kind of like the trip soundtrack.
And so that's the reason too, is that it's a soundtrack.
And then,
So now you might put CD cover for trip soundtrack. So now you're using more granularity. The more precise it is in your minds, the easier it will be for the students to complete the task, because not only your initial description will be clearer, but any questions they have will also be clearer, more clearly answered.
Okay. And then our strong verbs,
again, our research, write, draw or find images. I think it's important, depending.
You might use the word design, design the cover, because then that allows the space.
Exactly.
Okay, so you have that basic outline started. What I would also encourage you to do, then when you actually finalize your little paragraph and you type this up and input it on the computer so it becomes a nice looking assignment, is to offer a few websites where they can start looking for that music. Or perhaps even a few radio stations that they can tap into, where they could start listening to French or whatever other language is being taught music. Okay? Good. Now your next task is to look at this a little bit more closely through what we'll call a task analysis. In other words, what materials did you need to be able to create this? Approximately how long did it take? And what was most important? Because when you assign value to it, right? Identifying criteria hasn't yet assigned value to it. You want that value to be understood by the students, and you want them to feel it's fair. Unfortunately or fortunately, you might have really, really creative students who will invest all their time in their visual images, and it might be worth 1 out of 15 points. And so the student has to know that if they're doing that, that's fine, except that they need to complete the other criteria. Okay? So I'll give you a minute, and I want you to actually look at and discuss where the values might be assigned, and when you're actually writing it up as an assignment, you're noting the things they need to do. Maybe, for example, on research, you might say you have one class to do that, or you give them a certain amount of time with a deadline date that you can check in on with them. Okay? Okay. So work on that.